Hey everyone, Cynthia here with the Nameless Homestead. As I said in last week's video, it is getting close to kidding season out here on the homestead. January to March is usually when our goats give birth. And I've been noticing that there are a ton of new goat owners in my Facebook groups and on social media that I have seen asking a ton of questions about how to tell whether or not their new doe is close to giving birth. So that is what we're going to be going over today. Hey little monsters! How you doing? Hey Pagey Pants! We'll go over 3 stages of labor here. Before labor, early labor, and active labor. Before labor, we're classifying as things that does tend to do when they're just really pregnant and that a lot of people will mistakenly believe are in signs of impending kidding. However, a lot of these symptoms can overlap. So it's less about each individual symptom for stages of labor and more how everything kind of adds up together. First, let's go over udder development. Udder development can be a good sign that your doe is pregnant. It is not a great indicator that she's going to kid soon. Penny here is a great example. She is more than a month away from kidding, but she's already starting to have a lot of development in her udder. She says, "Oh, excuse me, don't touch." Her teats are elongating, but it's still quite small. When a doe is close to kidding, for a lot of does, their udders will get so much bigger than you would think that they could. They'll even become taut and shiny. And if it's that developed, it can be a sign that you're getting into your last days of pregnancy. It's not a great indicator that kidding is going to happen anytime soon. Another sign that people will see that their doe is in the latter days of pregnancy, but isn't necessarily due to kid super soon, is the loss of the mucus plug. As gross as it sounds, it is something worth looking up. Even human females produce it and lose it. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that can happen anywhere from 2 hours to 2 days to 2 weeks plus before birth actually happens, and it can even regrow. This is different from streaming, however, which is a very strong sign of impending birth that we'll go over in a minute. A mucus plug looks like a white to creamy to possibly even blood-tinged glob of mucus, thick like snot. And it's generally not in massive quantities like when a doe is streaming. Another one that we see a lot is goats that are laying around a lot more than usual. It's no surprise to any person who's ever been pregnant before, who's ever loved and cared for a person who has been pregnant, that the latter days of pregnancy can be quite uncomfortable. And it's just the same for goats as it is for humans. They tend to lay around a lot more and generally look kind of uncomfortable and make moaning and little grumbly sounds. If her laying around a lot more than usual is paired with some other symptoms, it can be a sign of early labor, however. Things like laying around fit into both categories of before labor and early labor. Before labor, like I said, can just be an uncomfortable goat, but if you notice that your doe is laying around a lot more than usual, and she's been pawing at the ground a lot and nesting, and she's maybe grunting a lot and loudly and seems to be straining, well, those can be signs that you're more likely in the early labor stage. Another sign that your doe actually is in early labor, along with laying around a lot more than usual, is pawing at the ground and making a nest. Some does do this a little more than others. My doe Piper, as you can see in this video clip, is a persistent nest maker. She's honestly so intense in her nest making, I'll have to remove babies from her because she will be in the process of giving birth to the second while kicking around the first in her attempt to make a nest. This is a great sign that your doe is going to be giving birth sooner rather than later. Another great sign of early labor, especially accompanied with laying around a lot and nest making, are the sounds that she makes. If you hear that low, persistent, rhythmic grunting sound, which I'll include a clip of here, it could be that she's contracting, and that's why she's making that sound. Oftentimes you'll hear this low rhythmic grunting before you even see contractions, because those early contractions can be difficult to notice. All of those symptoms combined are the sort of thing that should make you go, maybe I want to check on that doe again here in about an hour, or maybe consider rescheduling that grocery shopping trip if possible. Not anything to rush in and get the kidding kit ready, but maybe something just to give you a moment of pause to check on her. However, there is one thing you can do at any stage, and is really reassuring when you're unsure how early in labor your doe is, that you can do, and that is checking the ligaments to see how soft they are. On either side of the tail head of your goat, there are 2 ligaments. These ligaments in any other stage of life feel about the firmness and texture of a pencil underneath the skin on either side of the tail head. As your doe reaches the later stages of pregnancy, they do tend to soften a lot. And when your doe is really close to giving birth, as her body is preparing to kid, they will go super soft. Like, you won't even be able to find them anymore soft. And so I definitely suggest that everyone check for these ligaments fairly frequently in all stages of their doe's development, so you can get a general idea of what they feel like as you roll your finger over them, so that when suddenly that one day you check and they're gone, you know. And that is definitely one of the signs that you want to think about sticking around at home if you want to be there for the birth. Active labor will give you some pretty positive and obvious signs that your doe is gonna kid in any moment. These include seeing streaming mucus, a bulging bag of waters, and visible contractions. The most subtle of these signs is definitely contractions. If you are noticing that your doe is laying around and nesting, and you want to try to see if you can watch for contractions, what you'll want to watch for is her belly tightening and bulging. She might hold her breath for a moment and stare off into space. If she's walking around and nesting, she might stop dead in her tracks and just seem to stare off into space for a minute. You might notice her tummy contracting if you look at her abdomen during that time. Streaming and a bulging bag of fluids, though, however, are a lot more obvious. Streaming is literally streaming, as you can see from this video clip. There are gobs and gobs of goo hanging out, and when you see that is when you run inside and grab your kidding kit with some hustle. If you see streaming or a bulging bag of fluids, make sure that you start your timer on your stopwatch, because in 30 minutes or less, you should have kids on the ground. Now, if it's longer than 30 minutes, that is definitely a time when you might want to start thinking about intervening. Sometimes that 30 minutes can seem like hours. So set yourself a stopwatch and remember the old midwife mantra, hands outta, mouth shutta. We definitely want to intervene in the birthing process as little as possible. Well-intentioned inpatient humans can cause problems that there wouldn't have been normally. So don't do anything drastic or crazy like rupturing her waters or pulling on anything before those 30 minutes are up. If you guys would like me to create videos on things like optimal fetal positioning or things that can go wrong during kidding and how to potentially correct them, I would love to do that. If that's the sort of content you would like to see, please comment down below. Also, don't forget to like this video, consider subscribing, and I'll see you all next Sunday.